You're listening to the Life Purpose Advisor Podcast, Episode 9.
You want the people in your town, in your city, to have as much money in their hands as possible because you want them to come in and spend it in your store or eat food in your restaurant or whatever that is. So it's kind of an interesting push-pull that we see going on.
You're listening to the Life Purpose Advisor Podcast.
Life purpose, spirituality, higher calling, personal growth, meaningful life.
We ask the deep questions about living a balanced life of meaning, purpose, and joy.
Passion, know thyself, be mindful, spiritual practice, aha moments, life lessons, balance.
It is time to welcome your host, Angie Swartz.
I'm very excited to bring my guest, Rieva Lesonsky, onto the show today. I've known Rieva for many years, and she is the first person who introduced me to the world of podcasting and hosting radio shows. We previously hosted Booster Business Radio together at WS Radio for about 18 months. Rieva Lesonsky is the CEO of Gravis Media and publisher of the popular blog smallbizdaily.com. A nationally known speaker, best-selling author, and authority on entrepreneurship, Rieva has been covering America's entrepreneurs for more than 30 years. She was previously the longtime editorial director of Entrepreneur magazine. Rieva has appeared, well, it seems like everywhere, but Rieva has appeared on the Today Show, Good Morning America, CNN, The Martha Stewart Show, and Oprah. She can regularly be seen on MSNBC's Your Business. Rieva, I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Great to be with you, Angie. I'm really looking forward to it.
Feels like home to be back.
Yeah, it does. Old familiar voice.
Unfortunately, I don't think our past shows are still current or out there to listen to, but we certainly had a lot of fun talking to some very interesting guests.
We did. It was a learning experience, I think, for everybody.
Absolutely. So I don't know if I remembered that you had been on Oprah.
Yes, twice. I was on Oprah once, I think, around 1990, and then once around 2000, both promoting small business topics.
Oh, right. And was that fun to be in? Were you in the hot seat with Oprah?
No. They were very promotional. They were very fun. The first time I was on was extraordinarily fun. It was, I think we were talking, I can't remember if we were talking, I think we were talking about women entrepreneurs, and this was, early in the game, or we could have been talking about young entrepreneurs. I mixed them all up in my head. It was a long time ago, but there was a really good atmosphere and kind of very fun. And the second time was definitely about young people coming up with business ideas, and it was a little more of a process and a little less spontaneous, I think. So I had more fun the first time. Mm-hmm. I had the most fun with Martha Stewart, though. I have to tell you that. That was awesome.
Oh, well, tell us about that.
Well, I was the last guest before that taped Martha's show before she was sentenced, and I was really intimidated because I'd heard a lot of kind of scary things about her. But we sat down at her table, and before we started filming, I just said to her, I really think you got a raw deal here. And I don't know, maybe people hadn't said that to her, but we just had the best conversation about starting and growing a small business. And I still treasure that moment as one of the highlights, more than Oprah, as one of the highlights of my career.
It sounds like it was a very real conversation.
That's exactly right. She was very authentic in that moment. And I realized that people like that, it's very hard to be authentic because you're playing a role. Even if it's hosting a talk show or a reality show, you're still playing a role. But I think we cut through a lot of that, and we had a real conversation, and it was a number of years ago, but I will never forget it.
Well, maybe she'll have you on again. If I remember correctly, you're very good at predicting what's going to be big in the market soon. I think that you predicted that cupcakes were going to be very big, and they certainly are.
Yes, that's one of my most fun things I do is talk about upcoming trends. My favorite thing about cupcakes is after they got hot, people kept predicting they were over. And I think now they're a little less ubiquitous than they were, I wouldn't say they're over. I don't think they reign as high on the heap as they used to. But I spent a number of years saying, no, they're not over yet.
Right. Seems to be that donuts and pie are on the rise now.
Donuts for sure. Pie had its moment, but pie was hard because people can't individually eat a pie. They were putting like little pies on a stick or a little tart. But that's more of the problem with pie. That's why cupcakes became so popular, because it became a very individual thing that you could eat, something small-ish. And that's why donuts are kind of having their heyday now, because again, it's something that you can go and get on your own, and you're not trying to order something that's going to please everybody around you. You're just trying to please yourself.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting that donuts are on the rise with what we see in the fitness industry and sugar conscious. And we have an amazing place. I'll just give a little shout out to them here in San Diego. And if you get down this way, you should definitely check them out if you're a donut fan. The Donut Bar in downtown San Diego makes art out of donuts and very seasonal like things. You might look them up. One of the reasons I'm interested in them, and I have not yet had one of their donuts, is because they're very good with connecting with the community and local businesses that are around them and using social media. So they're very connected to the Chargers, for example, and some of the convention center and some of the bigger hotels. So very smart business move, I think.
Yes, that is. And that's kind of why donuts are kind of having their heyday again, because people have gotten very creative with them. And I think that that's the key to sustenance in any kind of traditional long-term business. It's about reiterating and reinventing without wrecking what you have. So it's like building a new room on your house. You have that solid foundation. You're just adding something new to enhance what you have.
Mm-hmm. Donuts. Wow.
Donuts.
Well, I could talk about food and small business with you forever, but I would love to talk to you about some more personal items, if that's okay.
Oh, sure.
I'd love to know if you know your life purpose and what it is.
I think my life purpose, I think I'm living my life purpose, which is to help people start and grow businesses. And it doesn't sound very spiritual or very deep, or I don't think I knew what I was born to do this, but when I started doing this, I can't imagine doing anything else.
I think it is very spiritual in a way. People that start businesses and follow their hearts or free themselves from jobs that they might not be so happy in, you know, that's a big step in the direction towards joy and making room for something bigger to come into your life from a spiritual perspective. So you might not see it that way, but I think you're providing quite the service in that arena.
Well, thank you. I like that perspective. I have not thought of that.
Me too. Well, I read a lot of things about people that are starting businesses and also people that are stuck in jobs that they don't like. And, you know, when you don't like your job and you're a little bit sad and depressed about that, there's not much room for creativity and fun, and if you're really meant to be an entrepreneur.
No, that's very true. We all have to work, or most of us have to work, and we might as well be spending all that time and energy doing something we love rather than something we hate. So if I can help somebody get there, that makes me all the happier.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So did you have an aha moment in figuring out that this was your life's work?
I think while I was in it, you know, it was very random that I started working and doing this. I had moved to California and desperately needed a job, or I was going to have to go back to New York. This was back in the 70s. Basically, I had about a month left, and I got a job back then at Entrepreneur Magazine, which is what put me kind of smack in the middle of the small business revolution. I was doing it in the 1970s when nobody really cared, and even the early 80s, nobody really cared. So I just was right place, right time. Sometime maybe it took the 90s for me to realize the impact I was making. It's really funny. I was very active early on in the entrepreneurial women's movement, and a professor, I can't remember what university she was from, was doing a study on women entrepreneurs, and she was interviewing me, and she asked me, what did I want to be when I grew up, and was I fulfilling that? And I said, I wanted to help people change their lives, and I didn't think of it at the time, and I said, and so no, I don't really think I wanted to make the world a better place, a child of the 60s that I am, and help people change their lives. And she said, no, you're doing exactly that. And so I would say that was my aha moment, that she put it in context that what I was doing had a broader purpose and usefulness to it.
You were at Entrepreneur Magazine for a long time, and then you started your own business, and we kind of, like we always do, jumped right into conversation. Tell us a little bit about Grow Biz Media.
In 2008, I started my own company called Grow Biz Media, and what we do is we're a custom content production company. We write content. Content can be blogs, articles, podcasts, ebooks, webinars. We create content for and about entrepreneurs and small business owners. And we do it for the entrepreneurs directly, for many of the marketers that serve the entrepreneurs, and for some of the organizations that also serve entrepreneurs. So our whole goal is to build a better, smarter business owner, and we try to do our part to do that.
Mm-hmm. And are you at liberty to say what kinds of companies that someone might know that you're serving?
Oh, absolutely. We do work for HP. We do work for AT&T. We do work for Alibaba, Web.com. We actually run their whole small business blog. So those are the kind of companies, those are the bigger marketing companies that you might, Glassdoor, which is a great site. If you're looking for a job, Glassdoor can give you the scoop on what it's really like to work at that company.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We write for Fox Small Business, for American Express, Open Forum, a lot of things. When you look at the small business universe, really, most of the people reaching out to help the small business owners are the big corporations, and that's who we work for.
Quite an impressive list. I think you could have just said everyone. It sounded like we work with everyone. But I like that you are also very tied into the government and what's going on with small business legislation. And are you still doing a lot of that?
Yeah, I work very closely I was just on a few months ago, I was doing a tweet chat with the SBA. I do a lot of work with SCORE and with the small business development centers, and looking at things that are impacting small businesses that people who aren't in a small business might not really recognize. And, we're all caught, small businesses are caught, as all of us are, in this whole political battle going on where people aren't really fighting for a principle, they're fighting for their own point of view. And I think sometimes small businesses get caught in that, where the collateral damage, where policies that really are going to help us, nobody's really paying attention to. But, we try to speak up and make sure that people do.
Because there's not a lot of lobbyist dollars or things going into, I would imagine, for small business legislation.
No, there isn't. There are some groups, but those groups are very partisan in nature. So one of the things that continually battle, right, is minimum wage. And some people will say, an increase in the minimum wage will kill small business owners. But when you look at the actual polls of small business owners, they're not against an increase in the minimum wage, because most of them understand when you put more money in people's hands, people spend it. And so if you're on Main Street, USA, right, you want the people in your town, in your city, to have as much money in their hands as possible, because you want them to come in and spend it in your store or eat food in your restaurant or whatever that is. So it's kind of an interesting push-pull that we see going on.
Well, we're lucky to have you out there with those contacts that you've made over the years, and I'm sure you were a big influence in the life of the small business owner. So we thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Do you think that you had hints along the way in your life about when you were younger that you'd be doing this kind of work someday?
I really didn't. I think a lot of when you're my age and that generation of American women, we were kind of trying to figure it out on our own. Not a lot of role models. I don't want to say for sure, but I kind of think I'm the first woman in my family who ever went to college. I come from a family of small business owners, but that's just what they did for a living. And so when I was in high school, back in the 1960s, the choices for women, what women could be, my guidance counselor literally presented me with 3 options, none of which were acceptable to me. And at one point he just said to me, well, those are your choices, which was the wrong thing to say to me. I mean, I was like, no. And so all I was thinking was, okay, what am I going to answer him? Because I had to answer him And I remember seeing women's names and bylines in newspapers. So I just out of nowhere just said to him, I want to be a journalist. I had never thought about being a journalist before. I knew I was good at writing and I liked to write and I was good at communicating. So I just said it, and that was it. That my path was sort of made out of frustration when I was 15 or 16 years old, having a conversation with my guidance counselor.
But you did mention you love to write. You've always loved to write.
Yeah.
And how about be in charge of things and edit things? Maybe not magazine articles, but...
Well, you know, I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and I'm a big believer in birth order contributing a lot to your personality. You know, it's what kind of shapes you of the exposure that you have to your parents and to what comes along next. And so I think that a lot of that is what made me shape my personality. So it's not so much being in charge of things. It's more of the looking after. You know, when you're the oldest of 4, you got to check on your brothers and sisters, in my case, 1 brother, 2 sisters, to make sure that they're doing everything okay. And I lived in a neighborhood where growing up where when we first moved in, we were the first people to ever live there. You know, it was a new neighborhood. And then when that generation of kids, as we got older, newer families moved in, and I was like just a huge babysitter. So again, it was just being responsible for the activities of kids and making sure everybody was safe and happy. And so that's how, I think that's just sort of what shaped me.
And the natural nurturer in you.
Yes.
So do you have any spiritual beliefs? What do you believe in the spiritual realm?
Well, yes, I'm very spiritual. I wouldn't say that I'm religious in a sense. I'm born and raised Jewish, and I believe strongly in the fundamentals of my religion because I feel that when you peel the onion down to the core of what that is, I think it's very just spiritual by nature. It's a relationship between you and God, however you choose to interpret that. And I was taught in my religion that your relationship with other people is even more important than your relationship with God, that God wants you to be good to your fellow human beings. And so I really try very hard to practice that. I believe that there are lessons that we have to learn that sometimes the universe gives us and creates opportunities, and we need to be awake and aware so we can grab them.
When you say the universe, what do you mean by that?
Well, I don't want to offend anybody, right? I think everybody has their own belief. For me, it's God. I strongly believe in God. But if somebody else doesn't, it doesn't preclude them from getting opportunities from however they choose, if they choose to worship. When you grow up as a religious minority, you are very cognizant of trying not to offend anybody by saying this is what it is. Because we don't know what it is. None of us know how it works. We assume, we believe, but we don't really know. And so we have to operate the way that feels best for us. But I would never presume that what's good for me is good for someone else as well.
What tools have you used along the way to help know yourself better? It sounds like you've had a very clear path, but have you ever used personality assessments or books that you guided you or ran into difficult times that made you look harder in the mirror?
You know what, Angie, I'm not an introspective person. I'm a very feel it in your gut and react person, and I get a lot of, I don't want to say messages, but I feel a lot of things, or things pop into my head that seem like they're the right thing to do, or this is the way to go. Or when I went to college, my first year in college, I grew up in New York and I went to college in Washington, D.C., and I was miserable. I hated it so much, and I only found out many years later that my mother had told my guidance counselor that he was not to give me any options between outside of the Washington to Boston corridor because she did not want me going outside of that corridor. And so I was miserable. And one night I was probably crying myself to sleep. I don't want to say I heard a voice. It wasn't an outside voice, but it was an inside voice that told me to go to the library. I woke up the next day and I remembered it, and I went to the library. Something kind of like guided me to the college catalog stack, and I just sat down on the floor and I said, okay, I'm here. I don't know what to do. And something, again, I can't tell you what, made me pull out this one of these cardboard magazine catalog holders, and there was one catalog in there, and it was University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri, and I opened it up, and it said Best Journalism School in the United States, and that was it. I said, okay, I'm going there. And I went home that next weekend, and I told my parents I was transferring, and my mother tried to talk me out of it. And remember, I didn't know she had imposed this geographical thing, and my dad said, if she wants to go there, that's where she's going to go. And that's what happened, and I got the best education I possibly could have gotten by going there. So intuition, I don't think God actually said, okay, Rieva, this is what you need to do. He's got better things to worry about than that, but whatever that is, that's what happened to me. So I believe that we're all guided by something, and we need to pay attention, because if we don't pay attention, we're not listening to those messages, and then we don't know.
You are the second person that I've interviewed recently who talked about getting a message in a library. So maybe God lives in the library.
There you go. What better place for him to be?
With all those books
right.
and all that wisdom.
Exactly.
Do you have any daily practices that help you stay centered, balanced, and connected?
Gosh, I wish I did. I do pray every night before I go to sleep, but I kind of wake up and jump into my day. I have clients on the East Coast and I have clients on the West Coast. So I try to really work 6 to 6, because you never know when somebody wants something. Sometimes that's a little challenging. I'm not a meditative person. I've tried. I don't get to the stillness part, but I think that's okay, because that's not what's meant for me to do. I'm stimulated by noise and activity, and that somehow in the midst of the chaos, I can have my good thoughts.
And prayer is very much a daily practice,
yes.
I think.
Yes.
And I bet you have some other practices, maybe a Diet Coke or a Diet Pepsi at certain times during the day.
Oh, yeah.
Or
First thing.
Things that
5
keep you.
in the morning, first Diet Coke gets open.
Oh, my. What role do you think your physical body plays in your life purpose?
You know what? For me, not much of one. I mean, I'm not what you would call a healthy weight at all. I constantly work on that. I think I've spent a lifetime working on that. I'm working on it now as we speak. I've lost 20 pounds recently.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. But I think that my doctor once told me, very wise man, that a lot of people make judgments about people based on their body. He said, and you just have to ignore it, because it's about being healthy. And not that, it's okay to be overweight, but my numbers are very good, knock wood. I basically try every day. I think for me, achieving is more, it's a mental activity. It's very cerebral, and I have a lot of energy. I just always had a lot of energy. So I can get by on 4-5 hours of sleep a night for a long time, and then maybe on a Saturday I might sleep for 7 hours, and for me that's sleeping in. But we're all different, and I don't like to set rules for people, because some people need more sleep than that. Martha Stewart famously said that she needs less sleep than that, and so I think we all accommodate to our best strengths. And one of mine is I have a lot of internal energy. My job doesn't require me to be physically active. I'm not a tennis player. I'm not a construction worker. So basically I have to exercise my brain and my fingers.
I recently interviewed Dr. Zanna Hackett, who's the founder of the U Institute and the ULT technology. In her assessment, it talks about 7 styles of people. And one of the things that is a part of her technology is that the way you look has a direct impact on your personality. So this is a long topic, but for example, a person that is maintaining lots of information in their mind is going to show up in a bigger container. Thus, you look at Oprah, her struggles with weight over the years. So it has to do in this tool with processing information, intelligence, how you manage your intelligence, and it's more of a, here's your standard operating procedure for the body that you received, basically.
That is so fascinating. I would love to know more about that. Yeah, that's really interesting.
So, well, we'll have to talk about that another time. It's a very interesting set of information. Our society puts different opinions on bodies, but in fact, as you were saying before with religion, everyone is and needs something different.
Yeah, we know. We look back in history, bigger people were more celebrated, and now they're not. And for me, it's a matter of I can't let what other people think bother me at all. You know, I can only do what I can do and feel like I'm doing the best and helping people. And if somebody doesn't like it, it's not my problem, it's theirs.
Can I ask you about money?
Yes.
Do you make more or less money now that you're owning your own business? Does it matter? Are your values still the same?
I'm making less. I'm making good money for being a business owner. I'm making less than I made when I was an employee, but I am happier. My values are, you know, I still live in the same house. I got a different car actually when I left, and I'm still driving the same car I got back in 2008. I think the only thing I crave differently now, and this is going to crack you up, is technology. I'm so dependent on technology in order to get my job done that it's like, ooh, here's a shiny new object. I have to have that. And so that's the thing that's really sort of shifted my focus. Like, ooh, I need a better computer or a better phone or a better tablet so I can tell myself I'm doing my job better. And I think that I really am. But, you know, there's a little bit of salesmanship going on in my own head for that.
Right, and a little guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
I do love that, and I was laughing before when Rieva was saying that she was on a tweet chat, because I knew you when you weren't on Twitter at all, and now you're quite the Twitter celebrity.
Yes, I love Twitter. I love Twitter more than I should love Twitter. And I love it for many reasons. For business reasons, I think everybody listening, Twitter helps you organize what it is you need to know. For my interest, it's not just small business, but things that I'm interested in. You can organize Twitter to just feed you information. For people who you respect to see what they're saying, you don't necessarily have to have conversations with them, but it's a learning tool for me as well. And so I like that aspect of Twitter because I think it keeps me informed in a broad area of subject matter that I like, that I'm interested in and that I like to read about. That's why I love Twitter the most.
Yeah, for sure. I also love that it's very easy to stay in touch with people with Twitter. Like, I don't have to remember your email address. I don't have to, I just have to look you up on Twitter or remember your Twitter handle and send you a message. Yeah. And it's that and Facebook messaging, both of those things make life so much easier. I think I would be okay with eventually not having email because I get a little frustrated with people that don't use other tools, like people that are on, let's say someone's talking with you on Facebook and they say, well, I'll email you later. Well, can you just tell me now?
Right. Why not?
Because things are moving fast. Like you, I'm also very active. May I ask you a short lightning round of yes or no short answer questions?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, here we go. Do you think passion and purpose are the same thing?
You know what? I don't. Let me clarify that. I think they can be, but I don't think they necessarily have to be. I think passion is something that you feel very personal about, and your purpose, you can feel passionate about your purpose, but you can, and again, I approach everything from a small business perspective, and everybody says to aspiring entrepreneurs, what's your passion, and start a business in that. That works for many. It doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes you have to do the more analytical, objective approach to what does the market need and fulfill that business, and you may learn to be passionate about it, or you just may learn to do it well and find your passion elsewhere. So I think they can coexist.
Do you think everybody has a life purpose?
I do. I just don't think everybody knows what it is.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how important is following your joy and igniting your purpose?
10. Why be alive if you can't be joyful?
Did you ever, we've already talked about this, but did you ever quit your job to follow your purpose? And do you think somebody should quit their job?
Yes, I did quit my job to follow my purpose, and I quit my job to follow my own moral rules of what I think is right. I think that it's a scary thing to quit your job. You have to make sure you have a means of support, a place to live. You don't want to quit your job without preparing for it. But we spend so much time and energy at work. Nobody should be, if they could possibly help it, and I realize there are many people who can't, but if you can help it, you should get yourself in a better happier situation. And a lot of that will happen from running your own business.
What brings you great, great joy, Rieva Lesonsky?
Well, on a professional level, when I get an email, a tweet, or run into somebody at an event that says, oh, thank you, you really helped me do something, there's nothing better than knowing that I was able to help somebody learn to do something better. On a personal note, because my whole family is 3,000 miles away from me, my friend has 3 daughters, and my spending time with those girls is just so much fun. It's exploration and it's learning so many new things. So that's my personal joy.
And if you unexpectedly amassed a good-sized fortune, what would you do differently?
Oh, wow. I would... That's so great. I love my house, but it doesn't have a driveway. So I would move to a house with a driveway.
Not a bigger house, just a house
right.
with a driveway.
I don't need more space in my house, just a bigger driveway. I would pay for the college education of, well, I only have one niece and nephew not yet in there, but I would help pay for those 3 girls that I told you about. I would try to somehow set up some kind of foundation, I think, to help or contribute to one that already exists. I would have to do some homework. The SCORE Foundation, for instance, does wonderful work helping small businesses, people get started and grow. I think that's sort of my life, and it would somehow have something to do with that, and I would travel more. I would love to explore the world a little bit more.
What should listeners learn from your life?
Don't be satisfied with the status quo. I had a good job. I was making a lot of money. Like I said, I make less now, but I'm happier now. I was able to figure out how to get out and keep a roof over my head and do that kind of thing. So you deserve to be happy. Let's put it that way. And so try to figure out how you can get to that end where you are happy as much of the time as you can be.
So what's the best way that people can connect with you and learn more about you and what you do?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter. It's just Rieva, R-I-E-V-A. If you're interested in starting a small business, check out our website at smallbizdaily.com. And if you have a question, feel free to email me. It's Rieva, R-I-E-V-A, at smallbizdaily.com.
And I bet she'll get back to you herself.
Yes, I bet.
Because we know. We know that you are the nurturer that you discussed earlier. Anything else you'd like to say before we close for the day?
I want to thank you, Angie, because your questions really made me think and put a little perspective. And I was having a crazy day, and I feel a little bit better about tackling the rest of my day.
Oh, well, that makes me very happy. I'm always honored to speak with you and very honored to feature you here. I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thanks so much, Angie.
Thank you, Rieva.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today here on the Life Purpose Advisor podcast. We know that your time is limited and your life is busy. So we thank you so much for joining us and spending this hour with us today. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. And if you'd like more help in finding your own life purpose, please visit us at www.lifepurposeadvisor.com. Have a wonderful day.